Welcome to episode 21 of the Today I Am Sober podcast with your host, Liz W. I want to share with you something that's going on with me, and if you can indulge me, I hope you find it useful. Because I know damn sure I'm finding this useful. So, should we start at the beginning? This show is all about boobs. And the reason I'm talking about boobs today is because this week I've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And to be honest with you, it was terrifying. However, I've had a rather startling realization, and that is this. Whatever life throws at you, be that relationship difficulties, family difficulties, health scares, death, love, joy, happiness, you have a choice today, and as I do, in terms of how we want to feel. And I've made a decision, and I'm sharing this with you listeners because I need to, quite honestly. Saying it out loud to you feels like it makes it more real, if that makes sense. Now, getting a diagnosis of cancer for me is quite possibly one of the worst things that could happen to me, because my lovely dad passed away just over 7 years ago of the big C. And it literally broke my heart. And it still breaks my heart to think about those last few days spent with him in the hospital as he was dying. But here's the thing. When my lovely dad got cancer, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to share it with anybody. He certainly didn't want us talking about it to other people outside of the family. Because for him, that was a way that he could almost control it and almost pretend it wasn't happening. However, I know darn well from getting sober and staying sober and one day at a time having continuous sobriety that the only way that I could do that was by talking. When I was in treatment, they made us write a recovery plan. And I think I've shared this before, but if I haven't, indulge me, because I've got cancer, don't you know? I've joined a new club. I'm going to pay the cancer card quite a lot, so if you can bear with me, that would be Marv. I wrote this recovery plan, and in it I said that I would phone somebody. And I made a pact with one of the lovely women that I was in rehab with that we would call each other each day. In fact, she'd left treatment, I think, a week or two earlier than me, but she came to the aftercare, so I saw her in the aftercare evenings. And the day I got out, I called her. And I called her the next day, and then she'd call me the next day, and then I'd call her. And for 365 days of the year, day in, day out, she and I called each other, and we talked about what was going on in our lives. I was somewhat evangelical about 12-step programs because I got a sponsor relatively quickly, about 6 weeks after coming out of treatment. And I was like, oh my God, the steps are amazing. It's just changed my life. Doing step 5, best thing I ever did. Oh my God, I feel so great. I feel really light. And I would literally evangelize about the program, and I'd say to her virtually every day, so when are you going to get a sponsor? When are you going to start doing the steps? Because it's brilliant. I think I drove her slightly demented. But over that year and into the next year, because we carried on talking, not quite as religiously as every single day, we stayed connected. And if it wasn't for her and the lovely sponsor I had, and the network of women that I in turn sponsored, I wouldn't have maintained my sobriety. I simply wouldn't. So when I went into the hospital this week and I got the results of my biopsy, after finding a lump in my breast before Christmas that I thought, this is a bit strange, and seeing my GP and getting the referral and having the mammogram and the ultrasound and the biopsy, the time came for me to have my results. And I'll be honest with you, listener, I was absolutely terrified from the moment of getting that biopsy and having it done to getting the results this week. I hardly slept. I was Googling every single thing you could possibly Google about breast cancer. I've been binge listening to podcasts about breast cancer. In fact, I've listened to virtually every single episode of You, Me and the Big C. And if you haven't listened to it, please do. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to an episode of theirs, which I think you might find really helpful, even if you don't have cancer. But the chances are you know someone who's had cancer. You're going to know someone who, unfortunately, receives a diagnosis of cancer at some point in your life because, statistically, the numbers state that we are, I don't know if it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 people will get cancer, or maybe it's 1 in 4. I don't know what the number is. You can Google it and find out yourself. But it's, we're all impacted by cancer in some way, shape or form. And in that week between the biopsy and the results, I barely slept. I was scared witless. I hadn't told anyone apart from my husband that I'd gone. And I was paralysed with fear. What if it's the big C? What if they tell me I've got cancer? Oh my God, I'm going to die like my dad, is exactly what I thought. And when I had the biopsy, I asked the nurses whether or not I should bring someone with me to the results appointment because, of course, I didn't take anyone with me for the mammogram because why would I do that? As far as I was concerned, there was nothing wrong with me at the time. And then I saw my mammogram, which was lit up like the Blackpool illuminations of white in my left breast, and my right breast was really grey. And I said to the radiologist, "Oh wow, isn't that pretty? Look at all that white. It's like fireworks." And she looked at me and she said, she didn't say anything. And then I said, "So do you think I should bring someone with me to the results appointment?" And there were 3 people in the room and they all said in unison really quickly, "Yes." I was like, okay, this might be quite serious. So what did I do? I sat on it. I binge listened to all these podcasts. I terrified the life out of myself. I was very fearful. And I needed to tell someone. And I didn't want to tell my mum because she was on holiday. And I didn't want to ruin her holiday because, what could she do with the information that I've got to wait for the results for a week? Because they gave me the appointment as I left the room where they'd done my biopsy. And I phoned the person that I knew was going to help me the most. And that was the first sponsor that I've had in AA, the woman that took me through the steps, the woman that gave me very clear-cut directions, and the woman that loved me back to me, and the woman that I've marched alongside with ever since. And I called her up and I said, "Jane, I've had to have a breast biopsy. I can't remember what I said. I think I've got cancer and I get the results next week." And she said, the first thing she said to me was, "Who are you taking with you?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. They said I've got to take someone." She said, "Would you like me to come?" And I was like, oh my God, would I love you to come? I would love you to come. Bearing in mind, she lives 2 hours away from me. She's got children. She's got a life. It was a Wednesday. Without question, without thinking about it, she said, "I'll come." And I said, "Thank you very much." And then I texted her later and said, "Look, you really don't have to come. It's fine. You've got, you're really busy, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, She came with me. And we were sat outside the consultant's room, giggling and laughing about breasts and about boobs and all sorts of silly nonsense. And it was really fun, and it was really happy, and it was really joyous, and kind of forgot the fact that I was going in to find out whether or not I had the big C. Anyway, walk in the room, and virtually the first thing the consultant says to me is, you have breast cancer. You need a mastectomy, and there'll probably be some chemo. But the first step is that we'll do more blood tests and we'll do a CT scan. And I was like, and I must say at that point, I cried. But Jane was sat next to me, and because I'd been Googling so much, I had a list of 26 questions that I'd written out to ask the consultant, plus 3 if I didn't have cancer. But I just kind of knew, with the way that I'd been treated both by my GP, who'd referred me, by those lovely nurses and the radiologist, that this wasn't normal. What I was feeling and could see wasn't normal. And when he told me, I was like, oh my God, that's it, curtains, good night Vienna. You know, all of those things rush through your head. How am I going to tell my son? How am I going to tell my husband? How am I going to tell my mum? Oh my God, they're going to be devastated. What about my brother? And on. What about my clients? You know, I run my own business. My head just went mad. And a conversation happened that, even though it was 2 days ago, I can't remember what the conversation was. Thank God Jane was with me. Because in that room, Jane said to me, with the 2 nurses and with the consultant, Liz, we know what the problem is and we know what the solution is. And when she said that to me, it took me back to those very early days when I first met her, and we sat down and opened up the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she helped me and taught me how to stay sober. And I was like, right, yes, we know what the problem is, we know what the solution is. I promptly came home and I went to tell my mum, and I took Jane with me as a foil because I knew it would break my mum's heart. I also knew that if Jane was there, my mum's far too polite to get really upset. And honestly, at that point, I needed that. I then came home and told my husband and told my son. And then I started telling people. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You tell people. But you see, the thing is, I'd learned with my dad that you don't tell people, that you don't really talk about it. And, you know, with his cancer, he chose not to. I did talk about his cancer to other people, but not publicly. I did it very privately, and I got the support I needed from friends. But you know what? I have a disease that wants me dead. And I'm not talking about the cancer. I'm talking about alcoholism. You know, my alcoholism wants me on my own, feeling lonely, feeling very sorry for myself, harboring secrets, deep resentment, and it loves a good pity party. And guess what? Getting cancer is a great excuse for me to just wallow in self-pity, feeling sorry for myself, saying, no, why me? Well, you know, why not me? If it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 or whatever the hell the number is, why not me? So, because my alcoholism wants me dead, and I've also got this pesky cancer diagnosis, that also wants me dead. But the thing is, I've stayed sober one day at a time for over 6 years. And I thought to myself, what if I use exactly the same tools that AA gave me to help me with my cancer? I know what the problem is and I know what the solution is. And the solution for me is really simple. I've got medical experts who are trained in my particular type, strain, stage, grade, diagnosis of breast cancer. They know it in intimate detail. And as treatment starts and progresses and more scan results come in, they are going to know what we're dealing with. And they're going to know what the best prescription is. Because I haven't been to medical school, and despite my doctor Googling, I cannot self-diagnose this, a bit like I couldn't self-diagnose my alcoholism. Now, sadly, there isn't a book with 164 pages about how to beat breast cancer. And if there is, please don't tell me about it, because I found a path, and the path is this. It's about living in the day. So today I am sober, but today also I'm okay. Do you know what I mean? I feel great. I haven't started any treatment. I've still got 2 tits. I've got no scar tissue. I've got no chemo. There's no radiotherapy. Nothing has started yet in my cancer treatment because, the doctors are still figuring out exactly what to do and when to do it. The only difference between me and the day before that diagnosis is the diagnosis. So, what do I do? Really simple. I keep it in the day. I want to live today. And I will do anything in my power to improve my chances. So what I've learned through getting sober and staying sober is I have to talk. And it's almost as if God knew that I needed this podcast, and that when I started on my sixth sobriety birthday back in September, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm loving doing it. I don't care if anyone listens. Thank you all for listening. I'm really grateful you're listening today. It's almost like God had a plan for me, and that he knew that this was coming and that I needed an outlet to talk. And my podcast, is one of my outlets I can use to talk. But I've also got real life people. I've told all the people I think need to know, and I've been overwhelmed by the loveliness. And some people have come back and said, look, I've been thinking about what to say to you. I don't know what to say. And the reason I'm talking about it on here is because, do you know what? I don't know what to say when someone else gets cancer. But I know what I want you to say to me now I've got cancer. And I want you to say to me, Liz, that's fucking shit. You've got this. I love you. Is there anything I can do to help? And the fact of the matter is, I don't know what help I need today. I don't. But what I've said to my girlfriends in recovery is, I need you to ask me when my next meeting is. When I can't get to a meeting, offer to pick me up and take me. And to just check in with me and check I'm okay. Simples. So I'm going to be really bold. If you're a friend of mine, or if you know me and I've told you I've got cancer outside of this podcast, I probably will be a real cheeky cow and ask you for something, because I can't do this alone. And I have got a phenomenal network of incredibly talented people. And if I think you can help me with something that is going to help me live I will contact you and ask you for it. I will have no shame about it whatsoever. And I want you to be able to say no to me, because I can be quite persuasive. And if you don't want to do the thing I'm asking of you, I'm not going to take offense by you saying no. I'm not going to say, oh, but come on, I've got cancer. Actually, I probably will. And if you still say no, I'll go, all right, then never mind. I'll go find someone else. So expect me to be a bit cheeky. I'm going to play the cancer card because hell, why not? If you had cancer, I would strongly recommend you do too. And I'm going to ask for lots of help. And if you don't know me personally, and even if you do know me personally, one way that you can help me is by sharing this podcast episode, by giving me a review, by going onto iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it's now called, and saying what you think about the podcast. Because guess what? Apple Podcasts is a bit like, it's got like an algorithm. The more people that review and rate and leave a written review and, 4 or 5 stars on it, the more of those you have, the more it pops up in the search. And I've scared the bejesus out of me by doing cancer research myself on breast cancer, and listening to podcasts and reading the statistics and going into forums. I've scared myself because, a bit like when I went into AA rooms and, I heard people say, only 3% of, actually my sponsor said this to me when we went through the big book, that there's a bit in the big book where it talks about the survival, the success rates and sobriety. And it said, and it was something like, of the first 100, and it's like 50 of them got sober and stayed sober. And my sponsor said it's only like 3% now. I don't care what the number is, it's a lot lower than 50%, I'm sure. I never wanted to be part of the 97% that didn't make it. I always wanted to be part of the 3% that did. And with this, I want to be a survivor. I want to live. I want to be alive. I want to see my son get a job, get married or not, have children or not, and live his life to its fullest. And I want to be here on this planet to see it. So if I think there is anything you can do to help me, I'm going to be completely and utterly selfish, and I'm just going to ask you, probably brazenly and probably very boldly, because honestly, I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to finish on this. I don't know what is going on in your life today. I don't know how you feel. I don't know what challenges you're facing. I don't know what joy you're facing. But please, let my diagnosis be a lesson for you to live each day to its fullest, because we never know what's round the corner. We never know what's waiting for us. And actually, if I'd have known, I spent a week terrified from biopsy to diagnosis, a week, hardly sleeping, literally scaring myself witless. None of us know what's round the corner. So just enjoy today. And if you're in a recovery, enjoy being sober. Blooming heck, it's phenomenal being sober. As my sponsor said to me, how on earth would you get to hospital appointments on time, Liz, if you were drinking? Who would actually take you? Because honestly, you'd have no friends left, love, and your mother certainly wouldn't be talking to you, and you definitely wouldn't be married. She didn't actually say that, but I can imagine her saying that to me, because she's absolutely spot on. The reason I have people today is because I'm sober. And if you're one of those people in my life, and you are one of those people in my life by listening to this, I love you. I'm really grateful you're listening. because I might not be able to work in the coming weeks and months. But I hope to God I can still talk, because otherwise, oh my God, I'm going to go completely bonkers, because you might have gathered I like to talk. But I am going to keep doing my podcast. And I've said that this is out every Friday. Well, do you know what? If I'm not well because I'm having treatment, or I'm sick because of chemo, or any other reason to do with my cancer that means I can't record this show, I am not going to stress myself out and say, oh, but I've got to get the show out on Friday. Because the truth of the matter is, I don't have to get the show out on Friday. I just set an arbitrary thing saying, oh, every Friday I'll have a new episode. I will try and record episodes in advance when I'm feeling well. I'm going to try and get a whole load of guests on and get episodes recorded in advance so that they're effectively batched up. So it, irrespective of what's going on with me and cancer, I can still talk with you and we can still have cool and exciting guests on. But I'd like your help. A, I'd like you to rate and review the podcast. But B, I'd love you to contact me on social media. You can find all the links in the show notes. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. And send me a private message and say, Liz, I want you to find someone and talk about this. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And ask me if I were to find someone to talk about the subject, what 3 questions would you like me to ask them? And you know what? I'll find somebody and I will use my cancer card and say, hey, I'm Liz. I'm the host of the Today I'm Sober podcast. I've just been diagnosed with breast cancer and one of my listeners would really love to have you on. Please come on. Yeah, I'm going to be that brazen. So if there is anyone you'd like me to have on, let me know. We do have a lovely friend of mine, Lauren Chiran, coming on. She's a menopause coach. In full transparency, I was supposed to record an episode with her today, but I woke up and I was terrified and I just couldn't do it. And in fact, I ended up seeing my GP in the time that I should have been speaking to her, so I actually cancelled her because I couldn't hold a sensible conversation. So let me know, who would you like me to talk to? And if you want to send me a direct message saying, oh my God, it's fucking shit, Liz, that you've got breast cancer, please do, because honestly, it is. I want to live today. And honestly, this breast cancer's not fabulous. I know I'm going to be a one-tit wonder, but I would rather have 2 breasts. So like Danusha Melina Durbin said when I heard her speak at Entrepreneurial Leaders Live with Helen Packham, I'm going to be bold and I'm going to be brazen. And with that, thanks for listening. I don't know if any of this has been useful for you, but by God, this has helped me. So thank you for listening. If you're being impacted by anyone in your family with cancer, please go check out the You, Me and the Big C podcast. It's really good. I'll pop in that episode about how to talk to people with cancer. I can't remember what the episode's called. And if I ask you for something, please help me. And if you can't help me personally, put me in contact with someone who can. It's been an honour and a privilege talking to you. Thanks for your time. Bye.